Hello, Internet. It's days before my gender confirmation surgery, gender affirmation surgery. I use those two terms interchangeably. And today I want to talk about transition regret. Just 15 days out from my own surgery, what do I regret? And I'm going to try to keep it psychologically healthy and also go pretty in depth. So be prepared for long sentences and complex thoughts. I am transitioning from male to female. I have transitioned in many senses of the word. Maybe you're transitioning, and maybe you found this video because someone in your life came out to you and you're worried that they're going to regret it. And to you, that archetype of person in particular, I say stop and chill. Because if you're here, it means that your loved one is present enough in their body that you feel the need to search for arguments online to attack a choice that they have spent months building up, if not decades building up. The courage to tell you, and you should feel happy that your relationship was valued enough to them that they trusted you enough to share that with you so early in their transition. Because if you feel that there is a point where you can still argue this, it means it's early in their transition. My name is Ray. I'm a South African trans woman living in Asia. And welcome to my channel, RubyRaeD, where I share my thoughts, feelings, experiences, and opinions about my life as a trans woman living abroad. So close to my transition, I have started receiving messages of people that have been in my life before and some of which will continue to be in my life, sending me messages telling me that I shouldn't, that I shouldn't get surgery, that it's everything. Now, if you've been watching my long form videos for a while, you know that I have a very tenuous to non existent relationship at present with my family, and it started rapid deterioration when I was outed. Whether that deterioration was always inevitable, um, or whether it could have been prevented by me choosing the exact moment and method of delivery of the news that I am transgender, instead of being denied that agency, or whether my words and phrasing was wrong, or whether nothing could have changed the outcome of me choosing to come out, is forever lost to the annals of an alternate universe, and I am okay with that now. I am still angry about it. I still feel hard done by. And it remains true that it created a situation where certain feelings were allowed to develop to a point where they became volatile. Benign phrasing became personal attacks, and a scenario that became untenable developed from that. So I am angry about that. I have opinions and deep feelings, emotions of betrayal that have not fully resolved themselves. And when this happened, I was in a situation where I was significantly more vulnerable and alone. So that means I was defensive and I was without a reference framework. I was not equipped to deal with the onslaught of doubt and blame and fear driven conclusions and straight up turf Bible quotes that would come my way. I regret the way that happened. That's regret number one. There is nuance to that, though. I regret the loss of autonomy, the betrayal of trust, and the subsequent emotional abandonment that followed. I regret that the ones who did the hurting could not understand why it hurt. I could not comprehend my pain, and nor was there a framework for them to work from, other than the cultural war fear mongering and socially conservative group of people that surrounded them. People that would not understand, and people that were not emotionally invested in my well being. And all of those things leaned in general toward not Christian values, but evangelical, conservative Christian dogma, stripped of the concept of hypotheticals and rational inquiry. That is one of the core problems with transphobia, the way that it exists in the world today. That's something that I've been dealing with. And to a large extent, the video series that I've been making, sharing trans facts, has been an effort to educate those people in a third party manner, to keep myself grounded, and to fight transphobia in general. And above all of that, to provide a solid core of reference for trans people, especially baby trans people, to know that they are not alone and there is a framework for them to work from. So I have realized that I've been going through the stages of grief. And I've told the people that I have in my life now, the people that have become the pillars of strength and safety and the foundation that I did not have 1.5 years ago, about my feelings. And they helped me process those feelings into a space where I could untangle them and start to articulate them in a way that set a clear boundary, held the door open, acknowledged fear, concern, and even love, even though that love is vastly misplaced or misdirected, at least. Regret, too, is not being brave and vulnerable enough before my transition to identify and truly open up to the people who love me for who I am. And thinking back now, I don't think that it's really possible to identify those people outside of understanding of who you truly are. Because when you are alone, when you are alone and when information is not available to you, that becomes impossible. So to me, realizing that I am at a point to deal with the grief, to know that I am going through the stages of grief signaled a growth to a point where I could start being independent and start absolving some of the anger that I feel. But I regret not being able to identify those people earlier. Regret 3. I was born a girl. And I knew that on a fundamental level from the moment I became aware of myself. I grew into a woman and lived a life performing masculinity as hard as I could. And I benefited from a lot of things that are unseen. I benefited from male privilege, not only male privilege, but white male privilege. And on top of that, somewhat handsome, somewhat confident looking, good man, white male privilege. And on top of that, being an expat in a country that has fallen prey to the reverence of white males. Basically, that's what I wanted to say, white men. And I'm not sure when exactly I became fully cognizant of my identity. It's hard to say because it happened in stages. What I can say with absolute certainty, though, is that it was always semi-consciously suppressed through homophobia and transphobia and protection. The male persona that I carried with me was not only a manufactured personality based on my interpretation of what an ideal man might be, albeit severely hampered by brain fog and airheadedness caused by deeply, deeply, deeply closeted dysphoria. And I regret that I had not been able to break through that fog earlier. In a cumulative sense, I have spent days or weeks staring at mirrors, paralyzed by the horror of what stared back at me and unable to engage with myself, unable to be honest, petrified of the brow bone protruding from my forehead and the appendage between my legs that I felt complete apathy for. To the extent of dissociation in my most intimate moments, I tried hard to feel something for it, to feel the purpose of needing it, but I simply wanted to be the people that I was intimate with. I lived vicariously through the lovers I had and on a foundation of apathy for my own role, hell-bent on living through their pleasure. To some extent, that benefited me because it made me quite selfless. But I regret that I was not able to be honest with myself then. So why transition then? With all this sunk cost and a life already lived. The one thing I do not regret is the epiphany. It was like a first breath of fresh air after years in a cave. I don't regret the protective, ever present persona that stood guard over the girl that became this woman when she was trapped. She is ultimately the one that gave the instruction to stand guard. Things needed to be done in my life, and milestones needed to be achieved, and a sense of safety needed to be reached. And when she did reach that point of safety, her time in the sun was absolutely inevitable. She wanted control over the entry to unfold into the world with a tender subtlety, but somewhere she slipped and plunged into a pool with depth on top, desperately treading water while the ones she had been sure she could count on were standing on the shore watching and shouting, "Swim. You chose to jump in. This is your choice." She did swim, not because of the jeers of concern and love. Yes, I said jeers, but from a determination to be who she was meant to be. I swam because I knew that if I didn't, they would let me drown and be done with it, and they would mourn the guard. And now I stand at the precipice of self actualization of a dream that I have dreamed since I knew that it was possible. And someone would deem it appropriate to tell me that they hope I drown, that they hope I turn around at the portal, and that I do not exist and that my struggles are nothing. And if I decide not to speak to them because of that, then that will be on my conscience. How do you square that away with the ones that you love? For so many of us, there is no need. You might never be in the situation where you must sink or swim alone. You might have a support group ready to help you, there to support and guide you to the edge and help you stand on your own 2 feet. But for an unreasonably large number of us, it's not the case. We are told to sacrifice our identity in order to receive. Here's some hard truths about that. I think that the damage done to relationships in cases like this leave permanent scars, and they will never be able to return to the point where they were, because the denial of your identity is a permanent signal of the position you hold within that person's mind, and it isn't a position of a level playing field. You expose a vulnerability, and they not only acknowledge it, they use it to try and align you with their expectations, despite your assertions of who you are. In a lot of cases, those relationships are not salvageable in any sense, I think. What makes a relationship salvageable, then, in my opinion, is this is the mental space that I find myself in today. I believe that the desire for me to not undergo surgery comes from a place of concern and misdirected love. I think that the refusal to accept my name and pronouns are a form of denial and an expression of grief that comes from the perception of loss, the loss of a child. But therein lies the problem, because as shepherds of young people, the role of every adult in society, and particularly parents, is to guide a child into themselves and to help them become a contributing, functional, happy member of society. It should be the goal of the guardian to open themselves to rational inquiry, scientific consensus, and most importantly, consistent, insistent, and persistent assertion by the human being that they have chosen to bring into this world. I believe that fear can be grounded in the uncertainty of your life, and that is fine. But once a decision is made from someone that has to do with their interactions, their existence with the world, then we leave an obligation. We have an obligation to support and to find hope and compassion. If we're unable to do that within ourselves, and we disagree so vehemently that we deem it appropriate to try and deny someone their own bodily autonomy or disrespect their identity from this for the sake of our own comfort, we should take it upon ourselves to move to a private space and contemplate the value that we still contribute to their lives. In the face of that assertion and the damage that has been caused in a relationship, I believe that it is appropriate to accept the scars for what they are, to process the grief, and hope that time may heal it to a point where regrowth can be possible, even if that regrowth is different from what it was. If you are a family member listening to this, I guarantee you the trans person in your life wants to keep the door open. They want to have you in their lives. They want a healthy relationship with you based on mutual respect and love. And you may have lost some of the qualities of the relationship by inadvertently watching them tread water from dry land. And that's on you. You might walk away from this video and own it. You might actually take some time and consolidate them with the image you have in your head and allow your experience of them to grow into what they have actually always been and create a better life and future together. And you might cut them out of your life permanently. You're going to walk away from this video with a feeling of content for that person because of your discomfort with their existence. And perhaps, maybe, that feeling will change in the future, but that feeling that you have now and the decisions that you make now will have lasting impacts on your relationship with that person and your ability to rebuild it. Yeah, I spoke a lot in this video, and I think it's important to process the feelings that I'm going through. And I want to share, maybe some people will think this kind of stuff is inappropriate to talk about, but I think that it is actually vital to talk about because it's part of what's missing in society is emotional discourse. It's why there is a male loneliness pandemic, epidemic, whatever. If people could allow themselves to be vulnerable and share those feelings and process them and own the mistakes that they make, then the world would be a different, better place. I think that's part of at least one area of how we can untangle, detangle, deconstruct the patriarch, because that needs to fucking happen in a hurry. That's it for me today. I'm probably like, there's a possibility that some transphobes might find this video and I might experience a torrent of backlash from them, but that's okay. To them, I say, fuck you. And if you have made it this far into the video, comment euphoria down below and I will know. Maybe we should put an emoji as well. That little heart face emoji. Smiley face with 3 hearts. I love you. Goodbye.